Hello everyone, welcome to Hibernate tutorial. In our previous tutorial, we have covered what is Hibernate and what are its advantages. In this tutorial, we are going to cover Hibernate architecture. The Hibernate architecture includes many persistent object. It includes many objects. For example, persistent object, session factory, transaction factory, connection factory, session, and transaction. So this Hibernate architecture consists of these many objects. So there are four layers in the Hibernate architecture. First layer is Java application layer. Second layer is Hibernate framework layer. Third layer is backend API layer, and last one is database layer. So here we have this Java code, and our Java code will interact with the Hibernate framework for the database operation, and this Hibernate framework will interact with the backend API, and after that backend API will interact with the database. So Hibernate architecture, this is a high level architecture of Hibernate with mapping file and configuration file. In case of Hibernate, we have this mapping file and configuration file. Mapping file can be replaced with the annotations. So in Hibernate we have important two files. One is mapping file and another is configuration file. Configuration file consists of the database configurations, that what kind of database it is, what is dialect, what is URL, what is username, password, and all the other properties of the session factory. So this configuration file will provides us the session factory. So we will see what session factory is. And we have the mapping file. This mapping file will, as we have discussed, that Hibernate is a ORM tool, object relation mapping. In case of Hibernate, we map our Java class into the database. So our Java class is mapped to the database table. Our fields are mapped to the rows of the database table. So in this mapping file, we define the mapping, that what is the name of the table with which our class is mapped to, and what is the name of the fields, or the fields are mapped to the columns. So in that mapping related information we stored in the mapping file. So we will see with the help of example how we do that. And this Hibernate architecture, Hibernate framework uses many objects, for example session factory, session transaction, and along with existing Java API such as JDBC, JTA, JNDI. So this Hibernate framework provide us all the API implementation, for example JDBC, JTA, and JNDI, and JPA as well. So what are the elements of the Hibernate architecture? So important elements of the Hibernate architecture are, so we have this session factory. First element is session factory. This session factory is a factory of session and client of connection provider. It holds the second level cache. So from this session factory class we can get the object of our session. So session factory is a factory of session. It provides the session. Now what is session? So session provide an interface between the application and the data stored in the database. So this, with the help of this session, we interact with the database. It is a short-lived object and wrapped with the JDBC connection. It is a factory of transaction. It consists of query criteria, and it holds the first level cache. And this session is an interface which provide various methods, for example insert, update, delete, and save. These are the all methods provided by the session. It also provides the factory method for the transaction, query, and criteria. So This session provide all the methods which are required to execute the database operations, and it also hold the first level cache, and it is enabled by default. So we will see in the example, with the help of an example, in our upcoming tutorials. So after that we have transaction. This transaction object specify the atomic work unit of work. It is optional. The org.hibernate.transaction interface provide methods for the transaction management. It provides the method for the transaction management, for example, begin transaction or commit. It provides us the functionality of rollback. If something went wrong, then we can roll back over all our queries or all our data. After that we have connection provider. It is the factory of JDBC connection. It abstracts the application from driver manager or data source. It is optimal. After we have transaction factory. It is the factory of transaction. It is optional. So this in case of Hibernate, we have no need to create the connection and manage the connection or close the connection. That connection is provided by Hibernate itself. That is already abstract. What we will do, we have to only load the configuration file and mapping file, and from the configuration file we can get the object of the session factory, and from session factory we can get the object of the session, and session consists of all the operations. So we can call any operation on the database, and we can use transaction as well. So we can begin the transaction and commit. So these are the important elements of the Hibernate architecture. So thank you for watching the video. In our next tutorial we will see, with the help of a simple program, we will